radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game Changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. It's Monday, April 9th, 2018. 99 days into the new year. Just 266 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in beautiful downtown Burbank, California, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking? How you doing? Aight. Yeah, man. All right. Tonight we have very special guest with us. John Greenwald is here of the Black Vault. That's right. We're going to talk about his investigation into TTSA, To the Stars Academy, and ATIP, the Aerial Aviation Threat Department, whatever it's called. We'll find out about all of that tonight. The secret black project running in the Pentagon, allegedly. It ran to a point. It's not running now. But more on that and all of his investigative journalistic skills will be presented tonight. Tomorrow night, Anthony Sanchez is back with us. And we are going to go over worldwide UFO sightings and reports, country by country, state by state, in the United States, all around the world, and what he is doing about it to get this information out there. He's got a project that he's working on, and it is amazing. So we're going to do that tomorrow night. I cannot wait to hear these stats that Anthony has got put together. And then Wednesday night, the one and only Daniel P. Sheehan joins us. And Daniel, this is what's amazing about Danny, is the amount of work that he has done in his lifetime and what he has pulled off and what he has been at the center of. He is an amazing individual. And there is so much to talk about right now, what is going on, not only in the world of disclosure and ufology, but the cabal, the Illuminati, who's running the world, what is really going on. He is the best to talk about all of this, and that'll be Wednesday night. Thursday night is another Fader night. John Rappaport will be here with his No More Fake Newsroom live, followed by open lines all night long. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, at JChurchRadio. Simple, at JChurchRadio. You want to hang out with us, use hashtag F2B, hashtag F2B. That is the sandbox. Any questions or comments, you can do that, hashtag F2BQ in Twitter. We use TweetDeck. Any questions or comments, you can also email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. And I got email earlier today, and it was strange. I mean, it was something that I kind of forgotten about because I've been doing it for so many years. At the beginning of the show, when I go east and west, north and south, far and near, that there was a guy. Well, he's still around. I think he's up in San Francisco, but a sports guy here out of San Diego, Hacksaw Hamilton, and Hacksaw out of what was that sports station out of Chicago, out of San Diego? I can't remember the name of the station, but anyway, huge sports talk radio station. And Hacksaw would start his show off each night from San Diego to San Bernardino, the Inland Empire to whatever, Long Beach. And he would do this thing, this little geographical paint the picture thing, and Hacksaw, one of the best, and then he would do the best. What did he call it? The best 15 minutes in radio. Right, that's how he would start his show off, and he would do Hacksaw's headlines, and he would do 15 minutes of the headlines, and that's how he started off every show for years. And I just love that guy. And so that beginning of the show that I do, that whole thing, I swear, I got to give credit where credit's due. I imagine myself being the great Hacksaw Hamilton. Hacksaw Hamilton. Whatever happened to that guy? They used to run these commercials on the NFL. Touchdown San Diego in the Super Bowl. And that was Hacksaw. That was Hacksaw calling it on the radio. And I think he was the voice of the Raiders for a while. Maybe that's what he's doing now. Maybe he's up in San Francisco doing the Raiders. But anyway, so that's what that is. And somebody asked me about that today, where that whole intro came from. And I just had to think about it. And I'm going to give credit. Hacksaw Hamilton. Hacksaw Hamilton. Okay, enough of that. All right, on Stellar, you can go and register. Things are getting really, really close here with OnStellar to testing. So you can go over to onstellar.com, and it's all been cleaned up and simplified there. And because the ICO, you can purchase tokens if you want, but that's a whole nother thing. But you can go register and get your username, all of that. Use the promo code Jimmy, and there's going to be a questionnaire and a survey sent out to all of the registered users, and that's going to be happening. And then we're going to go into this testing phase in about 3 weeks. So you'll be able to go check out the platform and build your profile page and test and go and check it out. And then everything will be going live, still on schedule in Q3 on Stellar. And with all of the talk lately, especially, I'm going to get to this in a second, about Facebook and what is going on over there, man alive. Woo! And we were watching, I'm going to recommend everybody to check out Silicon Valley on HBO. And if you haven't seen it, you can go and binge it. Binge it from season 1. Where they are at now, and this is what's really funny, what they are actually talking about on Silicon Valley is a decentralized internet, right? That's what they're building, right? They're building this decentralized internet without servers. And they're talking about server farms and security and online privacy and rights and all. It's great. Everything that's on Silicon Valley right now is what OnStellar is about. So, didn't Hacksaw do rock and roll radio at KLOS? I don't think so. No, I think Hacksaw, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. There it is. I'm going to click on that. Hold on. I got to go. I got to check out Lee Hacksaw. There it is. There he is. That's the orig, man. That's an OG talk radio guy right there. Lee Hacksaw. Yes, there it is. Hacksaw's headlines. Best 15 minutes in radio. See, now look, this is what's really funny, is I am talking about 1995. Okay, so that's 23 years ago. And he's still doing it. Hacksaw's headlines. It's been a long time, man. It's been a long time. One man's opinion. Look at that. Hacksaw Hamilton, thank you. Now, who tweeted that out? That's amazing. Thank you for that. That's gonna get a retweet. Let's send that out to the conspiracy community right there. Lee's gonna go, Church, what are you doing, man? Yeah, man. Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Okay. Silicon Valley. It's really interesting how, and I know that it's up, they're probably taping the show up until December or whatever, but it just seems really strange, the timing and the topics. So go and check that out. Register over at OnStellar, onstellar.com. Get your username, promo code Jimmy, and get going there. Now, here we are. We're in the middle of April. We've got May, and then that's it. Our next conference, Contact in the Desert, June 1st through the 4th, 2018. We have a new, I didn't get it up today. I'm going to post it tomorrow, a new trailer for Contact in the Desert. I'm not going to say anything. But when you check out the trailer, Rita can probably get it up into Facebook. But anyway, for everybody to see, but check out the voiceover dude. The voiceover dude is cool. Whoever that guy is doing the voiceover. I'm just saying, the guy doing the voiceover for the trailer sounds really cool. I don't know. I want your comments. We'll get that up here pretty soon. But that is June 1st through the 4th, 2018, Indian Wells, Palm Springs at the Renaissance Resort and Spa. Tickets and info are available over at jimmychurchradio.com. Just click on the banner right there for Contact in the Desert. And then right after that is our conference, which is August 9th through the 12th, Soul Tech. It's the Soul Tech Gathering up at ECETI at the ECETI Ranch in Washington. We're only selling 300 tickets. It's going to sell out here soon. And you can go and get your tickets and info, soultechgathering.com. And I was just going to comment. I can't remember what the comment was, so I'll get back to that. And don't forget our podcast. We have over 825 archive shows, just $2 a month. You can go and subscribe for the podcast at jimmychurchradio.com. Click on the banner. And also become an official Fadernaut. And now a quick note on that. You can go to our membership section on the site, and you can get the Bunker Cam commercial-free downloadable archives. And you can even get the Game Changer with autographed hats and T-shirts and so forth. So we had some issues with some of our shirts, which have been reprinted. We got that out. We had some database issues, too, as well. But the good news is everything is shipping and heading out. So if you've been back-ordered or whatever, you'll start to see the new stuff shortly in your mailbox. And by the end of the week, I would say, especially after what we did today, and we just ordered a new round of the new shirts. We'll get photographs up of those in a few days. They look really nice. And but by the end of the week, I think we should be all caught up. So if you've ordered stuff, and our T-shirt thing, there was some issues with, and it was just bizarro world stuff going on with the database and the payment system. I think those have been ironed out, but missing addresses and just craziness. And we reached out to as many people as we could to get all of your addresses in, and it took Drew to go in and figure this out. And going back and forth, and we had blank addresses. Weird, And so anyway, I think we've got all of that ironed out, so you should be able to wear your Fade to Black gear here shortly. And don't forget all of our sponsors, Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, River Moon Coffee, New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls, New Mana Food Storage, and, of course, Bearing Optics. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. I'm going to say this. Our daughters, growing up, had posters of this guy all over their bedroom. And when I was growing up, I remember Donny Osmond in my sister's bedroom. But these days, it's a different story. And for my daughters, it was Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance. And Gerard Way today is 41 years old. And it makes sense, too, when I think about the math and how it's all put together. But My Chemical Romance. And you know what? They weren't a bad band, And are they still together? Gerard Way today is 41. And we may actually have Gerard Way on the show here soon because he is fully engaged into our community. And there's more on that. And he's working on a comic book. Oh, am I allowed to say that? Ooh, I don't know if I can announce it. Can I? I'll clear that up, and then I'll answer everybody tomorrow on that. Gerard Way today is 41. On this day in history, 1959, NASA introduces America's first astronauts to the press. Scott Carpenter, Gordon Cooper, John Glenn, Virgil Gus Grissom, Walter Schirra, Alan Shepard, and Donald Deke Slayton were all introduced to the world on this day in 1959. Fader fact, Steve Jobs was adopted. His biological father was Abdul Fattah Jandali, a Syrian Muslim. Yeah, that's a Fader fact. But I've got part two, because even more amazing is that Jobs believed his vegan diet would eliminate the need of showering. Is this thing on? This thing working? Did you hear that? And that is a Fader fact. All right, where am I at? Tonight, John Greenwald is here, the Black Vault. We're going to talk about his investigation into TTSA and ATIP, which you can read over at the Black Vault. All of the documents and his work is presented there. Very extensive research. We're going to go through all of that tonight. Tomorrow night, Anthony F. Sanchez. We're going to talk about numbers of UFO sightings around the world. He has compiled an amazing amount of data. We're going to do that tomorrow night. Wednesday night, Daniel P. Sheehan. And I don't know how many times Danny has been on the show, but every conversation with Danny, it just stops me in my tracks. I remember this a couple of years ago at Contact in the Desert, and I was hosting a panel with Danny, and this might have been 3 years ago. And that panel, I gave Danny such a hard time in jest. I was just having fun. But he would say things, back when I was doing, and I would say, how old were you when you did that? I was 14. And it was just crazy. I'm joking, but by the time he was 30, he nearly caused a revolution in this country. And he has just had the most amazing career ever. And so that's what we're going to do on Wednesday night. We're going to discuss the state of disclosure, what is going on around the world with the cabal and the Illuminati and the New World Order. All of that's going to go down on Wednesday night. Aight. Now, for at least a year. Okay, look, what's been going down with Facebook lately, I am sure that they are having meetings all day long up at Facebook about how to right the ship and get things back on track. That's all they are trying to do. I am sure they have, for the first time, saw users leave Facebook and accounts canceled and people running for the hills. And they've never had this happen before. I don't know how many have left Facebook. I'm sure the number is in the millions. When you have 2.2 billion users, do you miss a million users? Well, I'm sure that they have had nothing but a growth curve, right? Well, I think it stopped, right? And maybe they're seeing a dip for the first time, and it's got to be alarming. And that being said, Facebook has brought all of this onto themselves. There's a certain amount of trust that is built. And the way that the company started, that trust was fun and cool, but it has gone the other way for them. But now, adding insult to injury, for the last year, at least a year, the biggest page on Facebook purporting to be part of the Black Lives Matter movement was a scam with ties to a middle-aged white man in Australia, Ian McKay, who was also a National Union of Workers official. The page, titled simply Black Lives Matter, had almost 700,000 followers on Facebook, more than twice as many as the official Black Lives Matter page. It was tied to online fundraisers that brought in at least $100,000 that supposedly went to Black Lives Matter causes in the United States. We don't know how much. But at least some of the money has officially been transferred to Australian bank accounts. The page is now suspended. But it's only suspended after almost a week of emails and calls between CNN, of all, right, and Facebook about the story. And then after that, Facebook finally suspended the page. And only then because it suspended a user account that administrated the page. Not because it was a scam page. Facebook would have left the page up if they hadn't gotten caught. Some Facebook users can now see whether their data may be obtained by political data firm Cambridge Analytica. And this comes after everything was disclosed with this fake scam page. So Facebook, opposite of YouTube, by the way, and I'll get to that in just a second, Facebook is dealing with themselves being in the news, in the mass media, every single day about data and fake stuff. I want to say this right. I don't want to seem too harsh here. But all of it, everything Facebook has brought upon themselves. All right? Oh, somebody just posted here, Roger King. You mentioned Jobs. Really? Wozniak just bailed on Facebook. Oh, man, that's harsh. Is that official? I would like to know if that's actually true before I say that publicly. But that would be pretty amazing if he did, too, as well. But now, in the news, Facebook is supposedly rolling out this program to see how you were affected tool, right? And it's supposed to be at the top of the news feeds to inform users if they were among the tens of millions of people who had their data improperly harvested by Cambridge Analytica. And the link will take them to the Help Center page that says if and how their data may have been misused. I haven't seen anything pop up on Facebook yet in my feed. The full rollout is going to happen over time. Apparently, they're not going to do it right away, so not all users will see a link at the same time. I haven't seen anything yet. Users who are not affected will see a different link highlighting which apps are connected. I haven't seen that link yet either. Okay, the link also directs users to a tool that allows them to disconnect apps from their accounts. Tomorrow, Zuckerberg is going to appear before Congress to discuss the data controversy. And yeah, of course, I'm going to be watching, as will the rest of the world. There are so many huge stories developing at the same time. We have Facebook. We have the North Korea meeting with Trump And I'm wondering if it will actually happen, but let's see. But we have that. We have Syria. And last week we were done with Syria, right? And we were going to start pulling back our troops. But now it appears that is not the case. There's a chemical attack, and it looks like we're going to be bombing the country in the next 24 hours. We have the China trade wars and how that's ratcheting up and our stock market crashing. All of this is just the portion of the news that involve the cabal and the New World Order, right? I mean, it's like crazy, and it's all going on at the same time. But isn't it amazing how YouTube managed to get themselves out of the news cycle so fast? Just last week, somebody went into YouTube and shot up the place. Over what? Censorship, right? Throttling back numbers, maybe subscribers, views, clicks on a page. And that was a really, really big deal. Not only what happened in that somebody went and shot up the place and then she shot herself and committed suicide on the YouTube campus, but it was over censorship. And YouTube managed to get all of it out of the news. And I am impressed. You know, I don't know what to make of it. Part of it is also the news cycle that we are in right now. I don't do politics on the show, so I'm not going to get involved in all of that, but there was some huge breaking news today that went down in New York. We have so we have that with the SDNY and what they are doing in New York. We have the UN and Security Council meetings right now going down with Nikki Haley, telling them that we don't care what the UN does. We're going to start bombing. So that is going on. And with everything else, Facebook and what's going on with North Korea and, of course, Russia, all of this is like big New World Order stuff, right? And I guess it needed to be that big to overshadow YouTube. And I find that amazing. I really, really do. So with all of that, we're going to talk to John Greenwald tonight. One of the things that I do want to mention, and I covered this in my little intro to the show tonight with the Fadernauts and the Bunker Cam, but the Black Vault, when it started, it was, and still is to this day, one of my go-to resources for anything. And I found out, and I remember somebody had told me it was in the 90s somewhere, maybe around 2000, but somebody said, one of my UFO friends goes, "Hey, man, you know the guy that runs the Black Vault? He's like 12 years old, and he lives in Burbank." And, you know, something to that effect. I was like, we've got to be kidding me. So then I go and I find out, I'd go and check out John Greenwald, and I found out just that. He was a teenager when he started that. John has been around with the internet since just about day one. So he is one of the most important people to talk to about anything. He knows how to dance on the internet. He knows how to investigate. He's a great producer of television shows here in Burbank, and he's been doing this forever. So when he investigates and he goes and he needs to find out stuff, he will not stop. And he knows how to get it done. We're going to discuss all of that with him tonight. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back with our guest, John Greenwald. Stay with me.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Natural Health Solutions with Chris and Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie, how you doing?
Great, Chris.
Now, you're the CEO of GetTheTea.com, right?
Yes, I am.
What is GetTheTea.com? I mean, is this tea you buy in a store?
Well, no, it's not. Life Change Tea is just that. Life-changing. Life Change Tea is an herbal tea that gently cleanses your body from intruders.
What do you mean by intruders?
Well, intruders are toxins, chemicals, GMOs, heavy metals, and more. They're in our food, in our water, in our air we breathe.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
And Life Change Tea will help you with removing these, as you say, intruders?
That's right, Chris.
Are there side effects with this tea?
Well, you might lose a little weight. When you clean your colon, you lose weight, you feel better, and you have more energy.
Wow. Ronnie, where can people purchase Life Change Tea?
Oh, that's easy. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Ronnie, I want to thank you for being on the show. People, don't forget, GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at KGRAradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I like saying that. Fade to Black. Fade to Black. It should be a song. Oh, it is. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Tonight, our guest is John Greenwald. Tomorrow night, Anthony F. Sanchez is here. Wednesday night, Danny P. Sheehan. Thursday night, John Rappaport. And his No More Fake Newsroom Live, followed by Open Lines all night long. And this weekend, I'm not over at Coast to Coast AM. What am I going to do with myself? But tonight, it is John Greenwald Jr. He hosts the popular website, theblackvault.com. The Black Vault is the largest online database of U.S. government documents in the world. John began researching the secret inner workings of the U.S. government at the young age of 15. He targeted such groups as the CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon, the Air Force, Army, Navy, the NSA, the DIA, countless others. Greenwald utilized the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, to gain access to thousands of records. He accumulated an astonishing number of documents on topics related to UFOs, the JFK assassination, chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons, and top-secret aircraft. He has been featured on television networks such as the History Channel, Discovery Channel, Learning Channel, A&E, Fox, NBC, along with international networks such as the BBC and the NTV over in Japan. Tonight, we're going to discuss his research into To the Stars Academy. Luis Elizondo, ATIP, through his direct contact with the Pentagon and documents he acquired through the Freedom of Information Act. His website, of course, is theblackvault.com. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only John Greenwald. I'm going to say Junior. I have to. John, good evening.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here.
You know, John, this is the thing. And I'm joking about this, but I'm not. But when I discovered the Black Vault back in the 90s, I had one of my UFO buddies hit me up one day, and we were talking about the Black Vault, and he's like, hey, man, it's run by a 12-year-old. And I was like, what? So I looked into you, and sure enough, he was saying it in jest, but he wasn't far off with that. But when people say things like, well, the Black Vault, it's probably run by some 15-year-old kid in his underwear in Burbank, they were right, right? I mean, that's actually the case.
Sadly.
Yeah, right.
That was quite a few years ago now, but they were right. It was a long time ago when I dreamt up this idea, but I was 15 when I started it, and it was all based on the Freedom of Information Act request, like you had mentioned in the introduction there, and I just I knew that there was a thirst for this type of knowledge. And even at 15, I was a punk little kid who I should have been focusing more on schoolwork. And by the way, my parents, you said I'm a junior. Senior, along with my mother, who's my biggest fan, are listening into you right now, Jimmy.
Oh, tell them.
They will agree that I should have focused more on school. And I'm sure they're laughing right now, both out loud. But it's true. I should have focused more on school. But that's when I started the Black Vault. I was a sophomore in high school, and here I am 12,000 years later and still at it.
Yeah, and so did you go to Burbank High School?
I didn't. Alamany, to be exact.
Oh, you went to Alamany.
For high school.
There you go. Now, this is the thing, and your parents are really cool, by the way, and I'll just say that right now. To support you through this, I'm sure they had other plans in that they don't need their son's name on all of the lists at all of the agencies, right? Yeah. Have you thought about that? I mean, now here
since day one, yes,
yeah.
And here's why. Not to cut you off, but my dad has the same name I do. He's John Greenwald, also.
Right
now, I adopted the junior to not confuse the government with my father, who I'm not blowing any state secrets here, but he worked for Rocketdyne and worked on the space shuttle. And so indirectly, he was working, with NASA and contracted, obviously, through Rocketdyne. And so he was deathly afraid that this 15-year-old kid was filing these Freedom of Information Act requests for every government secret you can ever imagine. I mean, we're talking about UFOs tonight, and that is where I started, but I tackled everything. I mean, I've got now, here we are 21 years later, I've got almost 2 million pages on every government secret you could probably dream up, and I've either gone after records on it or have something on it. And so my dad, God bless him, who had a job working, in essence, for the government, a government contractor, I had to adopt that junior. I'm not legally a junior, but that's why it has stuck ever since then, because senior did not want to be confused with me.
Yeah, and here in the Valley, most people don't know around the country. They think of Burbank, and they think of NBC or Johnny Carson and and as well they should, and Disney and everything that goes on here. If you're not working for the movie or television industry, you were working for Lockheed. You were working for Rocketdyne or all of these other aerospace companies that all the way across the valley, from Thousand Oaks and Simi Valley the Mojave Desert all the way into Burbank. The Lockheed Skunk Works, which, as everybody knows, was at Burbank Airport. Across the street, and I used to trip on this, across the street there, by Fry's, was the Lockheed Credit Union, which was for the Skunk Works employees, right? And that was the industry here. So your father was a part of it. If he didn't do that, he would have been in the movie industry. So go figure.
Yeah, and it's sad, though. I will say this, because I will give a shout out not only to my dad, but the men and women who worked on the space shuttle and the space program. And it's so sad because I grew up with it, knowing that my dad worked on these things. I would watch the launches. We even went out to Edwards Air Force Base and watched the landing one time. It was really, really cool. But like you said, a lot of times people weren't realizing what was in their own backyard. And Rocketdyne, with at the time, had 2 plants in the valley. And where my dad worked, who's now retired, he will drive by where he used to work, and I don't know, my dad will know better than I will, but last I heard from him about it, it was a dirt lot. And these companies are being bought out by other companies and bigger corporations, and it was no longer Rocketdyne, it became Boeing and then Pratt and Whitney or whatever the hierarchy was. It just kind of get sold and resold. And it's sad. It's really sad because I think a lot of people, they don't know that history. Like I said, I grew up with it. It's in my blood. My grandfather, from my dad's side, worked on, top secret, literally top secret programs for the government. And I was able to actually, through the Freedom of Information Act, find records that my grandfather wrote. Now, he passed away before I was ever born, but I know a lot of his history, or at least some of it, I should say. And then through the Freedom of Information Act was able to see some more. So it's in my blood to love this kind of stuff, and I really do. But it's sad because people really don't pay attention to what's in their own backyard. And there's so much history out there, not only here in the Valley, but I mean, wherever your listeners are from, there's probably something within 50, 60 miles connecting to some kind of top secret project somewhere. And it's amazing when you take some time and look into it.
When you are 15, life is long and endless, and you have a lot less care about yourself. Would you have done this stuff with, targeting the CIA and the FBI and the Pentagon if you were an adult? Was that a decision made by a careless 15-year-old?
No, absolutely. But in the same breath, I'll also say I never thought more than 2 decades later I would be talking to the Jimmy Church on the radio and still doing it. I never would have dreamt that as a 15-year-old kid. I was fascinated by it. I dove in. I had no idea what the Freedom of Information Act was at the time. And I was learning about these intelligence agencies that I had never even heard of. I mean, everybody knows the CIA and the FBI and all that stuff, but I was learning about these, intelligence agencies that really aren't talked about a lot. Organizations like the National Reconnaissance Office that operated in secret for decades before they were even officially acknowledged. And here I am, just blindly flooding them all with Freedom of Information Act requests and letters. And what I learned indirectly from somebody in the Pentagon, or I should say directly from somebody in the Pentagon who had retired, and they wrote me on the side, and they did not give me any state secrets before anybody listening in wants to call me and wonder what happened. They just called and were very complimentary. They had retired based on some of the bureaucracy that was going on within the Pentagon. They did confirm who they were by telling me about letters only I and the Pentagon knew about. So they were definitely who they, were saying they were. And he told me, he says, the one thing that made you stand out other than your age was, in essence, you didn't take the company line. And that has always stuck with me because as that 15-year-old careless kid, to get them for the government to get you away, they're just going to give you that standard cut and paste line.
Right.
And the majority of the people will walk away and go, well, they told me this, so it has to be gospel, and they'll stop asking. And he was very on a complimentary level, said, you did not take that line, and you kept pushing, and you kept asking those questions. And he said it went from a fascination inside the Pentagon Pentagon, and I don't want to say what office, but it was in the Pentagon. And he says it went from a fascination that a 15 and a 16-year-old kid was doing this, but then you stuck with it and you didn't go away. And he says then it upset a lot of people. He says that's part of the reason why I retired and left, because they didn't want to actually do what they were there to do. And that was to honestly answer your questions and your FOIA requests. And if you ask for something, by law, to search for it. And even though I did get the runaround a lot, when I pushed, I got answers. And the FOIA really was a very important tool that I learned very early on, that although it had its shortcomings, it was something that was going to produce results. Would I do the same thing as an adult now that I have a little 4-year-old boy to look after? Yeah, I second guess it, but here I am. I'm stuck. I'm not going anywhere.
Has it opened up relationships with the different agencies? Do you have relationships now? And can you pick up the phone and call the CIA?
Yeah, and in fact, on Friday I did that very thing and had a great conversation with one of the FOIA officers there about one of my requests. I've filed since that age of 15 8,000 Freedom of Information Act requests. Now, those are just the core letters. That doesn't include the follow-ups, the appeals, and all that. So it is a huge amount of requesting. And, in that process, I've made friendships and have learned to really respect the people, the majority of the people that are working inside these FOIA offices, because I know that it's not easy. And I know that because they're dealing with people like me, and I don't give up, and I do ask those questions, and I ask the hard ones. What I mean by that is requesting those documents and pushing for the answers. By law, they don't have to answer any questions. So I kind of worded that wrong, but I'm pushing for the right documents, and I'm pushing in the right direction. And so I've learned to respect that. But then you do have, some FOIA offices that aren't as good, not as friendly, not as thorough, not as detailed, not as open as others. And those are the ones that become very challenging. So although I've made friends and acquaintances and learned to respect it and respect the process, there are people that do try and hinder it. And it's sad, because this is something that you and I pay a lot of money every year with our taxes for this program to work. So I think it's up to us to utilize it, and it's up to them, who's getting a paycheck paid for by you and me, to actually do their job right. And that is where the challenge comes in. But, I just take that as part of the game and keep pushing.
Tell me about the process a little bit. When you are presenting your information, you combine reporting and journalistic skills with the black and white, right? The documents themselves. How much liberty do you take in your comments and your opinions, or is all of that only directly based on black and white?
It's primarily based on black and white, and that's generally the only thing I give you. My opinions are very few and far between. I have a lot of fun chatting about it, like you and I are doing now, and throwing things out there and making people think. Sometimes I'll throw ideas out there that I don't necessarily believe in, but to play devil's advocate in the grander scheme of things, my idea with the Black Vault is to give you that information to really question what you think. If I only gave you what you already believed, it wouldn't be that exciting. And the documents, in a lot of ways, really challenge everybody who chooses to read them, because they aren't, even though they're black and white in the true sense, sometimes you really have to read between the lines. And sometimes you really have to start thinking out of the box, not only getting the information, but also trying to decipher what it means. And so there's a couple different ways to approach the Black Vault, because a lot of people that go there, they're not the FOIA requesters. They're not there to file their own requests and use my information as a stepping stone. They're there to, in essence, learn, and that's all they're there for. On the other hand, I do have those people that come to the Black Vault and use it as a stepping stone to go after other material that I didn't go after. And that's all part of why I do what I do, is to kind of bring everybody together and give them the ammunition they need to go out there and pursue the truth, that the truth that they're looking for. And so that's what I do. But opinions, it's pretty rare online, when I give them. Again, I let the audience decide. Nobody really cares what I think, in the sense of well, I think this document means that, or this document means this. My ultimate goal is to make people think for themselves and decipher what it is. And people will come up with varying answers, and that's all well and good. That's awesome, because that's why I do what I do. I want that debate, and I want people to have fun looking at the information. And also, I think that they're very surprised when they take a little bit of time to read it. And the best letters I get, I wouldn't say the best, but the most humorous, I guess is the right word, is when somebody accuses me of faking it. That the documents that I put online are nothing more than me in Photoshop or Microsoft Word typing these things up and faking it. And it sounds laughable, but I genuinely get those letters. And the reason why I love those so much is it makes me realize I'm doing my job right, because this information is something that challenged them so much. It was easier for them to say, well, John Greenwald's faking it. He hoaxed that document. There's no way it's real. And that's how I know that I've gotten somewhere good.
I have heard, and I need your clarification on this, I have heard from other FOIA experts and requesters out there that do, it's really hard work. But they have told me, I've heard a variety of things, but one of them is that the easiest way to get a FOIA document is you have the actual document number or the report number, that if you just go with search words, they may not do the due diligence, and it's difficult, and they have to go through file cabinets, and a lot of this stuff is on paper and is not digitized. And so can you help clarify that?
Sure. It all comes down to what exactly you're requesting. And like you said, a lot of things are just on paper. They're not digitized. There's no keyword search that they can just punch in and search for documents. So, I would say that it doesn't rule you out if you don't have a report number. It definitely helps. But in the same respect, if you're too specific, if you give too much detail, that is giving them leeway to get out of it. That if by reading exactly what you put, and again, you have too many details and a few details are wrong, they can technically say, nope, sorry, we've got nothing on this, but it was just because you worded it too wordy and wrong. So sometimes it can come back and bite you. But again, it really is a case-by-case basis. Sometimes, yes, you're absolutely right. A report number, a date, a title, an author, if there is one, or an agency that created it, that is definitely helpful with those types of requests. Other times, and this is something that I've done even recently, where you go after emails for specific personnel or a group of people at whatever agency you're targeting for a search of their email addresses, but only using a keyword search, and that's it. No other details. Don't tell them why. Don't get wordy. You just say, I want a search of James Mattis's emails for the keyword North Korea.
Right.
And that's it. And you don't say anything else, and you give a time frame. And so you say from January 1st, 2017 to, December 31st, and then you see what you come up with. And so you have to kind of frame it in that way with the least amount of specificity as you can, because that can come back and bite you. So I know that doesn't really answer your question, but it is a case-by-case basis. Depending upon what you're going to try and find, that's how you kind of formulate the request.
We're going to head towards break here in a few minutes, and we'll get into TTSA and what you found out. But after the break. But my question is this: when a document is created inside of the federal government, technically, are all of those documents technically available, no matter what the document is, available for FOIA?
Yes, as long as it's a federal agency, FBI, NSA, all of those agencies. There are exceptions, one of which is the White House. So that is under the Presidential Records Act. And in essence, anything that Donald Trump's administration creates within the White House, you cannot file a Freedom of Information Act request for until he is out of office. And then the National Archives takes over, and all of those presidential records are then FOIA-able, if we can make up that word. You can then file a FOIA request for all those presidential records. They get transferred to the National Archives, and then they go into the Trump Library. And so every time that a president opens up their library, it's a field day for people like me, because then you can start requesting all of those records. But outside of the White House, pretty much every federal agency, any military branch, they all are subject to the FOIA. And then what the exceptions are a list of 9 exemptions. And as long as the information that you're requesting does not in some way fit into those 9 exemptions, which are those blacked out marks that you see, as long as it doesn't fit into that list of 9 exemptions, then they, by law, have to release it. Now, sounds a lot cooler than it really is. Sadly, there are about 2 or 3 exemptions that are used more than anything else, and that is primarily what the government uses as an excuse to black out information. And then the Sharpies come out, and then they just start scratching out information based on national security or based on internal rules and practices of the agency or an open law enforcement investigation. Those are the ones that you see the most. They black it all out, photocopy that, and that's what you get. So the basis of the Freedom of Information Act, the basic fundamentals of it are fairly simplistic. But then when you really start diving in for information, that's when it starts to get complicated, and really you got to kind of learn the different niches to go to within the government to really find what you're looking for.
How many people visit the Black Vault each day?
About 10,000 people every day. Unique visitors that sit down and type in the Black Vault or search for it and come through, but about 10,000 people a day. It's getting pretty big.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. I'm going to take a break right here. Now, when we come back, as we get into this To the Stars, and your reporting and how it is laid out is really well done over at theblackvault.com, and everybody can go and read through as John and I talk tonight. But when we come back, I want to talk about your methodology on how you were doing all of this. And, of course, we'll talk about what happened with the Pentagon last week, too, as well. All right. Are you ready for that?
Sounds good to me.
Let's do it. Our guest tonight is John Greenwald, the Black Vault. The Black Vault links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can go and click, and right there on the front page is the To the Stars report. We'll be doing all of that right after this short break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be right back. Oh, you can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, but you can follow John at BlackVault.com on Twitter. I'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy.
Hello, I'm Katie Lee, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com. Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly Ancient Life Oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Yeah, Twitter's lighting up. You know it is, because John Greenwald is here from the Black Vault. You can follow John on Twitter at BlackVault.com. I'm surprised you didn't put .com, the word dot. You should have done .com.
I think it was too long when I created it years ago, and I don't think it fit at the time.
Right.
I think there were too many characters to try and fit it all in. So, but yes, you're right. It should be, but sadly, Twitter didn't let me. I don't believe at the time.
I love Twitter, and I love this audience. I just got a tweet in from Scott, and he says he can confirm Rocketdyne is an empty lot in Woodland Hills.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, it is.
It
sad.
really is.
It is sad. When they tore down Skunk Works at Burbank Airport, that really bummed me out because that building was right there. Nobody knew, man, right there, Hollywood Way. And they were developing the SR-71, right? Think about that in Burbank with all that explosive.
Hide it in plain sight. I think that there are a lot of instances of that.
Oh, they did, man, and all that crazy fuel that they had for the SR-71. The city of Burbank didn't know that they had a potential nuclear incident. If anything would have happened, those fuel tanks that were there. But again, right in your backyard, hide it in plain sight. Now let's get into TTSA and. What and your report on it for everybody? Just go to the Black Vault. It's right there. I've got it up in front of me. And
and not to cut you off, just I set up a short URL for it. It's the blackvault.com/TTSA, just for your show, because I knew we'd be talking about it a lot. So that'll shoot you directly to that page. So the blackvault.com/TTSA, and that'll get you right into the page. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I figured I'd help you out.
No, that's
pointing
fine.
People the right direction.
That's fine. Rita, get that link up there, and I'll retweet that right now and get that out there to everybody. For you, what kicked this off? For you to jump into this, and there was probably a catalyst at the very beginning. What was that?
Well, I was interested with what Tom DeLonge was doing for a couple years now. I mean, you have a rock star who, in the true sense of the word, coming into the UFO field and kind of making waves and talking big about doing something. But, I don't know what the exact time frame was, but it was quite a while that he was saying, I'm going to do something, and then nothing ever happened. And then come October of last year, he has this press conference, and I watched it, very interested because I wanted to see what he was doing. And in presentations like this, because it's happened a few times over the years in the field of ufology where there's a press conference, Stephen Greer and the Disclosure Project is another example where government people stand before the press podium and start talking about official stories, official documents, official projects. And so that's what interests me the most. So when Mr. Luis Elizondo got up and talked about this secret UFO study within the Pentagon, my ears went up because that to me is something you can confirm. And I was fascinated by the story because, as you know, I've been on your show before and have talked on quite a few shows for quite a few years now. I disagree with that narrative that the government gives, that they did their UFO investigation during Blue Book, and after the close of it in 1969, that was it. Now, obviously, we know that that isn't true now because of ATIP, and they were looking into UFO stories. But before ATIP was ever even created, back, 2009-ish, before that ever happened, I was able to find documents that proved beyond any shadow of a doubt that the government was interested in UFOs. And I, again, talked about it on your show with Air Force Instruction 10-206. And that was something that, the Air Force admitted in black and white, unidentified flying objects. There was no other keyword or code word or phrase, no UAP or no new acronym. It was literally unidentified flying objects. And so when this story broke in not only October, but then really broke in December, the media was just completely misrepresenting the history behind UFO research and saying, going back to that company line that Project Blue Book was the end in 1969, and the government had no interest in UFOs until the start of ATIP. And so when the media really started looking, in my opinion, kind of silly reporting on this, I felt that I could do some good by really going after the official documents. And in October, going back to that press conference, Mr. Elizondo had never said ATIP or what the acronym stood for at that time. It was just kind of this secret UFO study. So in October, I had filed a Freedom of Information Act request typing out what Mr. Elizondo had said about the program, who it was with, which was the Office of the Secretary of Defense. I pretty much tried to get whatever I could from his stand-up testimony that he did in this press conference, and I filed a FOIA request. And I was, at this point, that was kind of the only request that I could do until December, just simply because there wasn't a whole lot known about the program at all. It was just through OSD, the Office of the Secretary of Defense, and Mr. Elizondo said that he was the head of it. It had researched UFOs, an unidentified phenomena, an aerial phenomena. And that was kind of it. We didn't really have, I know they talked about the Nimitz and showed that video, I believe, in October, but that was kind of it. There was no other context that we could get. So I filed a FOIA request based on that. And it took about a month and a half. November 27th was the date of their letter. And they said that they had absolutely no records on this UFO program.
Now, let me jump in right there. I'm looking at the letter here. I want some clarification for the audience. So the first part of the question is this: between November 27th and going back to October, did you reach out to TTSA, number one? And two, do you have a relationship with TTSA today? Are you working for TTSA? Or is there something that needs to be disclosed here up front about any ongoing relationship with TTSA? So first part of the question, did you reach out to TTSA between October and November 27th? And do you have a relationship today? Do you represent them? Are you on the payroll?
Well, I'll start from the beginning part of that. Between October and November, no. Admittedly, I did not reach out to them, but I didn't think really that would help the story at all because Mr. Elizondo had kind of already stated his side, and then they published the website. Now, come November, when I got the no records response, that's when me and my internal radar, the red flags started going up all over the place, simply because somebody at this point was lying. And I say that because Mr. Elizondo said, I worked for OSD. This is the program that I headed. This is what it did. I turned around, filed a FOIA request to OSD for that very project, asking for documentation on it. And they say, nope, we got nothing.
OSD is what?
The Office of the Secretary of Defense.
There you go. Okay.
Right. So the DoD is a very big agency. So, encompassed in the DoD is OSD, is DIA, or the Defense Intelligence Agency, is the Department of the Army, Air Force. They're all part of the Department of Defense. And so you can't just file a FOIA request to one office and then they search all of DoD. That's impossible. But with Mr. Elizondo saying I worked for OSD, I was able to hone in on that particular office to file the FOIA request to search those records within that component of OSD. Now, going back to your line of questioning, no, I do not work with TTSA, nor do I work for them, nor do I speak for them. What I would say up front is this. I do not question anybody's loyalty or honesty or patriotism or history or anything like that. And I mean no disrespect to not only Mr. Elizondo or anybody at TTSA. But here's the issue. Somebody is not telling the truth. The documents do not lie. And what I mean by that, as we kind of continue to talk, these no records responses really started to kind of come forward in ways that they shouldn't have. Documents that should have existed based on testimony weren't there. And I know we'll get into that in a lot more detail. But I do want to say up front, I'm a fan of what TTSA is trying to do, or at least that's what I thought that they were trying to do, is bring all this information out, bring Mr. Elizondo into the spotlight. This is what he did. And now all these red flags are going up for me. So since November, I have reached out to TTSA on quite a few occasions. I have spoken with their PR person. I'm comfortable saying this now, although I've sat on this now for almost 3 months. And the reason I sat on it is because I wanted to give them an opportunity to fulfill what I asked. And what I asked was to sit down with Mr. Elizondo in whatever way he would do. I offered recorded telephone conversation, a recorded video conversation via Skype, or I use Zoom, which is even better, but recorded online, that I would do it in writing, meaning whenever he had time, if he was too busy, whatever he would do. If he would sit down with me in person, I'd figure out how to fly there. I'd said whatever he's open with. And I will say that their PR person was very, very nice. They were, very open to the idea. But here we are 3 months later, and all I've heard is, I'm trying, maybe it'll come to fruition. In essence, it's been 3 months. It's not going to happen. I know that I'm not a Tucker Carlson at Fox News, but sadly, those big names that are doing the interviews with him and or doing these stories, like Tucker Carlson at Fox News, they're not asking these types of questions. And I'm not trying to pin anybody into a corner, but if he has the information to prove that the government is lying, I believe that fits into the narrative of what they're trying to do. And that is that the government is hiding stuff. And on top of that, they're not taking this seriously. And that has been my biggest red flag more than anything else, is because these types of issues, these questions, because they're just questions, they're not accusations, but these questions remain unanswered. And I told the PR person that at TTSA, and that's why I want to bring it up kind of in the forefront of our conversation here, is that I'm not out there preaching to the heavens that anybody's lying or not telling the truth. And especially I'm not saying that without talking to them. I have tried for months now to get him on the phone, because I would love to sit down with him. He seems like a great guy. He seems genuine. I have no reason to doubt his integrity, and that's not what I'm doing. But as our conversation here will unfold, Jimmy, you'll kind of see that there's a lot of denials from the government through multiple agencies. And in my mind, based on Mr. Elizondo's testimony, documents should be there. And so if this is a cover-up, in 22 years, I have never seen such a massive concerted effort that stretched throughout multiple agencies, all to deny a project like this. I've never seen it at this level, if that's really what this comes down to. And I think that that's saying something also. So he wanted to address some of this stuff. I mean, the page that I put up there that you pointed everybody to, the blackvault.com/TTSA, even though my personal tone is skepticism on the magnitude of ATIP, if it comes out that OSD is lying and all these agencies are lying, all I got to do is change one paragraph, and this will be one of the best resources to prove that cover-up/conspiracy about ATIP. Whether or not that's true or not, I personally lean that that is not the way that this is going to unfold. But if it does, all of the evidence is there, and that's what I'm trying to do is collect the actual evidence.
Now, with this, let's actually start with this November 27th response. And now the highlight is this: says, after thorough searches of all electronic records and files of OUSDI, no records of the kind you describe could be identified. And then they go on, with the, blah, 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 the boilerplate stuff. But what was it that you requested to get this response?
Yeah. So, and I'm glad you brought this up, because this is a lot of criticism that I get. And I want to kind of dispel a myth. What I requested was for the following. I respectfully request a copy of records, electronic or otherwise, of the following: all documents pertaining to the outline, the mission statements, objectives, etc. of the DoD Aerospace Threat Program. Now, I'm going to interject on my quote here. The reason it's worded that way is the true acronym of ATIP was never announced until December.
Right.
Okay. But this is my next part of my request. Please note, this may not be the exact title, but is derived from the testimony of Mr. Luis Elizondo, former DoD employee. According to the Huffington Post, as posted here, and then I put in the verbatim quotes from the media and the quotes from Mr. Elizondo that pertained to describing what this program is. Now, why do I point that out? Because if I just left it at DoD Aerospace Threat Program, which is how Mr. Elizondo and TTSA talked about it in October, they have an out. And if this goes back to the beginning of your show, Jimmy, when you asked me, how do you formulate questions? If you're too specific, then it can come back and bite you. So if I didn't put that, please note, this may not be the exact title, that's where I believe my safety net is, to say to the agency, hey, look, you obviously know what this is about.
Right.
This is mainstream news at this point. They got a lot of press coverage. Even in October, there was quite a bit. So the spotlight was definitely on for them to know what was going on in the media and what people were asking and what I was asking for. And yet they said, we have no records. Now, I have since appealed that, and I appealed it based on a couple different factors. Obviously, the name. So if they are trying to play semantics with me, okay, they have the name now. I'm still waiting on the answer to that appeal, but that's being processed. But it just, to me, did not sit well as the beginning FOIA request that I received, because, again, I was vague enough and open enough with them to say, look, this is the person we're talking about. If he headed the project, it would probably be fairly easy for them to find where Mr. Elizondo was working and where that project was. Again, me noting that I didn't have the exact name, or it probably wasn't the exact name, and yet they still were giving a no records response. So could they be lying on this? Absolutely. Meaning the DoD or OSD. Could they be lying? Absolutely. it didn't sit right from the get-go, and that's what started me kind of really sitting down and digging in and going after records.
Now, the revelation of the actual, what was purported to be the name of ATIP, and of course, what is in question here is the word aerospace. Is it aerospace? Is it aviation? Or something else altogether, by the way?
Yeah.
So that was the next step here. When was the first time you had heard either acronym?
Well, then that's when the story broke in mid-December. This is when the media just exploded with the New York Times article, really was the spearhead to that. And then the media around the globe blew up, profiling not only TTSA, but more so this, what they called the secret Pentagon UFO study. And from the get-go there, that's when I realized, okay, let's try and figure out, what really is here. And in line number one, I have nothing against Leslie Kean. I'm a fan of hers.
Absolutely.
I know she wrote that article. She has done amazing work. But in line number one, they called it the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Now, with FOIA, as anybody can attest to that's used it, and I've talked about it a lot, you wait, and you need to learn patience if you're going to learn the FOIA and use it. Because on a quick side note, I waited over 14 and a half years for one document to come. Now, really think about that. 14 and a half years. That's almost a decade and a half. I literally waited for one agency to give me one document. So that's a long time. Now, not every agency is like that, and that doesn't happen too often, but you do wait months and months or years at a time for a response. So towards the end of December, I just picked up the telephone. And going to your question about creating relationships, a lot of these names I've seen for years, signing my letters. I've talked to them on the telephone. There's a mutual, I hope anyway, a mutual respect between both sides that, I'm doing and utilizing the FOIA, and they're doing the hard work of being a FOIA officer. And I've always respected that. And so I just picked up the telephone and I started talking to the FOIA officers about these specific requests. I talked to OSD. Again, very, very nice. They were not trying to get me off the phone, and quite to the contrary, they were trying to help. And I will say this because it would be a matter of public record because I was talking to a government agency. But when I was talking about, Mr. Luis Elizondo said this and said that, they told me over the telephone that they couldn't even figure out what office he worked in. Now, this is the FOIA office that told me that. And now I had at this point not known the exact office that he worked in. I have since figured that part out within the Office of Secretary of Defense, or OSD. So I didn't know where he worked, and so I couldn't tell them, well, he worked here or he worked there. DOD is big enough, as I've already mentioned. OSD actually has 13 components under OSD. So that also is incredibly large.
Right.
And so you really have to figure out what you're going for and where it might be. And so to TTSA's credit, their PR person did tell me exactly where Mr. Elizondo worked, and I used that in part of my appeal. But my whole point is that I picked up the telephone and called. I also then called not only the FOIA office at OSD, but the PR office, the public relations office at the DOD, which handles OSD within the Pentagon. I know there's a lot of acronyms here, and I'm trying not to be too confusing, but in essence, this was the PR office that you pretty much the press goes after to get answers on whatever the topic of the day is. And talked to the lady on the telephone, and I asked her about the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. She immediately corrected me. And she says, no, you mean Advanced Aviation Threat ID Program. And I said, well, okay. I said, I'm not going to fight you. You know more than me. But I said, the media is running aerospace. And she says, no. She says, that's wrong. It's aviation. And so I was told in December that acronym was wrong. Now, going back to it.
At this point, let me jump in.
Sure,
just for clarification here. Who were you speaking to?
This was a member of the PR staff within OSD.
Okay, so you don't want to say their name. That's fine. That's
on
fine.
This one, no. But I'll tell you the name. I know where you're going with it, and it wasn't her. But this was another person I talked to within the office. And just out of respect, I mean, I just don't want to like put the spotlight on somebody because it wasn't in writing. But I can tell you that it did. Happen over the telephone,
right?
Where they told me the word was aviation, and that obviously has been the root of a lot of controversy. That the PR office told me that over the telephone. So after the debate kind of commenced throughout the whole UFO community, and even in interviews, Mr. Elizondo says aerospace. I went back to the PR office a few weeks ago. And I will say, I talked to Major Audricia Harris, who is the head of the department. And the reason why I'm comfortable saying her name is not only she's the head, she was very sweet on the telephone, but she also put it in writing for me that it was not aerospace, that it is aviation. So it sounds like we're playing semantics, and it probably comes off that way, but it's very, very important, especially in line number 1 of the breaking story on this, to get it right. It's also very important for, and again, I'm not questioning integrity here, but it's important for the head of the project to know the project he's heading. And in interviews, he says aerospace also. So who is wrong, right? Somebody's wrong. I'm not going to. I'll let the audience decide.
Right.
But I will say this, and this is going to come off as rude, and I don't mean it to. But there's only, out of the two sides here, one is wrong and one is right. There's only one side that's returning my calls.
And
I think that that's an important note, that it's the government that's actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they're being the most transparent out of anybody right now in this debate.
And what about the New York Times? Do they bear some responsibility here because they did go to print with aerospace? Did they? And Leslie Kean, where she got her information from, and I trust Leslie, and we all love her work. But there was a mistake made. Or was it that the New York Times was able to confirm aerospace before running with the story? They vet all of their information. So where do we go with that part?
I will let me give a quick example of my work in television, and I'm not going off on a tangent here, but I bring this up because I think it's important. I did a show on Hitler and the occult for the National Geographic Channel.
Yes, you did.
It sounds like a left field comment, but there's the point to this. And with the National Geographic Channel, when you produce and write a show, National Geographic Channel, in my opinion, more so than any other network that I worked for, wanted every single word in line that we had sourced. And we had to find sources, and in most cases, double source it. I don't know how the New York Times works, but in my opinion, it all depends then on the scrutiny of New York Times. And I bring up the National Geographic Channel because they would not take somebody's word for it. And I think that to Leslie's defense, to the New York Times defense, I don't know if this is how it played out or not, but my experience with network fact-checking for television, and I'm sure the same is true for print, you have guidelines on what's acceptable and what's not. And in my opinion, for print journalism, they probably just accepted a word of somebody who said, I worked for the program and this was the name of it, and which in this case would be Mr. Elizondo. So that could have been their source, that they verified aerospace with Mr. Elizondo. Because as far as I know, there is no official document yet that has been released on ATIP. From what I understand, and Major Harris was very accommodating to my questions when I asked her about the title and so on, she put that in writing and sent that to me, which in essence puts that as an official document. It really, in essence, does, because it's her government email to mine, and it becomes a government record. And so with that being said, there's really no reason to doubt now that it's aviation. And again, sounds like semantics, but it's very important. That word has very different meanings if you say aerospace or aviation, and it kind of changes the scope of the project.
Yeah, one is the Wright brothers, and one is Apollo. Yeah. Okay, so let's be very clear. It's two totally different things. John, listen, I got to take a break right here.
Sure.
So let's do that. We come back, and we'll just pick up right where we left off. There's a lot to discuss. And I had mentioned earlier, John, about all documents, everything should be there. I do want to get into the resignation letter. Hold your answer on that. We'll talk about that when we come back. Our guest tonight, John Greenwald, The Black Vault. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. There's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Yeah, man, it's going down tonight. John Greenwald. Man. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio, and you can follow John at BlackVaultCom on Twitter. Now, John, continuing the discussion, I'm going to ask one obvious question, and I hope I don't sound too naive here. But shouldn't there be at least one document or email that has ATIP, aerospace, aviation, and Luis Elizondo all on one page?
Yes, but I'll defend the fact that we have not seen that yet. And the reason why I'm going to defend it is that according to now OSD, they are referring all FOIA requests regarding ATIP to the Defense Intelligence Agency. Now, I personally argue the fact that all documents would be at DIA. And again, I'm going to try to not make the acronyms confusing, but I would fight that DIA would have 100% about ATIP based solely on the testimony that Mr. Elizondo said he worked at OSD. So if you're in one office, your OSD, desk, there is something that's going to be at OSD that should be processed there under the FOIA. I hope that part makes sense, because if everything was at DIA, then Mr. Elizondo would be working for DIA. You know what I mean? Like that's the part that doesn't make sense to me. And I am fighting, respectfully fighting with the Office of the Secretary of Defense under the FOIA with my appeals based on the fact that Mr. Elizondo said I worked in that office. So there's no way that 100% of everything would be DIA. If it is, then we're definitely missing something of the story. A big chunk, because there's no reason that the head of the project, if it really was DIA, would be within OSD, and yet OSD is saying, no, we have nothing, it's all at DIA. Something there just doesn't make sense at all.
Why doesn't is there an issue with Elizondo just producing some benign documents that don't say anything? There's nothing classified in it, but it's a letterhead with his letter for the annual barbecue of ATIP getting together at a park, right? Something. What is preventing that?
Well, that's a great question. And I don't know the answer. And that's where my red flags come up, and my respectful criticism against Mr. Elizondo is the strongest. And if you listen to an interview by Senator Harry Reid, he said that there are, quote unquote, hundreds of documents that the media could look at because he doesn't believe the majority of them are classified, but the media has never gone in and looked at them. Now, what the heck does he mean by that? Because I can't find anything. Now, again, DIA, if they are the home, where my defense comes in on why we haven't seen anything yet, is the Defense Intelligence Agency is about 2,000 to 2,300 FOIA cases behind in their backlog. So it's not that they say that there's nothing there. They haven't gotten to our requests yet. And I am fighting a very strong battle to get them to expedite my request, to get that information, because at this point, that's where all of the ATIP documents are. Now, back to your question, why hasn't Mr. Elizondo come out with anything? And I don't know the answer to that. And that leads into, again, my biggest criticism, because there should be something. They also, they meaning TTSA, references what they call a chain of custody to the declassification of these videos, and that's their proof that they're real. Now, I could be wrong, and I will say this, 100% honesty, I could be wrong. But I have never in a single case ever, in top secret documents, videos, photographs, or anything, under the FOIA, come across a chain of custody when it comes to a document being declassified, whether it be a video or a photograph or a document. In my opinion, there is no such thing. There are document transmittal slips. There are routing slips. If one agency passes a top secret record to another, there's slips on top that have signatures and where it passes off to. Sure, if that's what they mean, okay. But when they are talking about a chain of custody that proves that the document is declassified, in this case, the document meaning the videos, I don't know what they mean by that. And so I've put the challenge out to anybody who has fought me, and there's been quite a few online. I just say, point me to one quote unquote chain of custody document on any classified anything. Like anything that used to be classified that is declassified, and they have a chain of custody document on top of it that shows that it's declassified, I'll stand corrected. I'll come back on your show and plead that, hey, I really am wrong. But I don't know of any, and nobody has been able to produce that.
Well, and
crickets usually commence after that.
And what would be really cool, which would help you and other FOIA requesters, if there was a chain of custody form, there would be a form number, and you would be able to request that form number and tie that to a specific situation. That would make life easy.
Right, and actually, to that note, in an interview after a couple months, I believe this is going back maybe 6 to 8 weeks now, so the story had been around for a little bit. Mr. Elizondo was doing an interview. He had said that he filed what's called a DD Form 1910. And what that is in essence a request for someone to get something declassified from the inside. Now, as a civilian, non-military, and I'm not government, I would file what's called a mandatory declassification review. You, me, and everybody listening can file one of those. But a DD Form 1910 is, according to Mr. Elizondo, how he got these videos declassified. So I have since filed FOIA requests for those forms that he filed. To this date, I do not have a response on that yet, but there's a big question mark on who released the videos. Now, since this is in writing, I haven't published this yet, but I'll say it on your show. When I talked to Major Harris at the Pentagon just last week, she confirmed, and I know she's done this with other media outlets, so this isn't anything new, but it was new for me to have it in writing, was that they did not, the Department of Defense did not release those videos or declassify them, meaning wherever Mr. Elizondo got them, they were not from an official channel. Now, take that for what it's worth.
No, we need to be very clear about this too, as well, because this has been brought up a few times. And certainly there are some great researchers out there in the UFO community, and these videos, specifically the Tic Tac video that had been out since 2007 on YouTube. This wasn't any release from the Pentagon to TTSA. It simply has been out there all over the net. So that kind of kills one of 3 videos coming from the Pentagon. This last one, the Go Fast video, whether that was released directly from the Pentagon to TTSA, that remains to be seen. That's certainly what TTSA has said, but I don't know. What have you found out about that? How about the gimbal?
Well,
the gimbal.
This was a conversation on April 3rd. So this was after Go Fast was released, and I'll read you exactly what Major Harris put in writing for me.
Okay,
short and sweet. DOD has not released videos related to this program.
Done.
That's it.
That's it.
Now that wasn't the full letter, but I mean, that was addressing my question on how these videos came to be. Now, is Major Harris lying or not telling the truth? Anything's possible at this point, sure. But, you know, what sounds more plausible, and this is where Occam's razor is going to come in that, you know, you have one side that's not addressing any of these potential red flags. They're not returning phone calls, and they're trying to raise $50 million. And then you have the other side who is taking phone calls. They're calling me back. They're calling the media back. They're kind of stating the facts as they know them. And at this point, you know, the DIA is the one that's going to release documents. They haven't processed the FOIA requests yet. I know I mentioned this, but I'll say it again. I'm in the middle of fighting with DIA to get them to expedite my request. I did a 27-page appeal letter. It was the longest appeal letter I've ever written. And I believe, not trying to pat myself on the back, but it put the case in exactly the letter of the law and what is required to get a FOIA request expedited. And what in essence that means is if you can justify your request being processed in front of all the other requests that they need to process, then they will expedite it. But there are certain criteria that you have to meet. First and foremost, it has to be breaking news. Well, look at December and look at the headlines, and I guarantee you there's no arguing that this was breaking news. It has to be of public interest. Yet again, I was able to prove using Google Trends that show the popularity of UFOs. But on top of that, how the media around the globe glommed onto this thing. I was able to break down word by word what they required in 27 pages, and I was denied. And so I now have two options. I can take them to court, and who really has the money to do that, or I got the there's an agency called OGIS, and OGIS it kind of is the like a mediator between people like me, being a FOIA requester, and agencies like OSD or DIA or whomever, and they help mediate. So if maybe the agency is not being truthful with me or they're not giving me a fair shot, because I truly believe that I have filled all of their requirements, that they will come in and kind of overlook it and be a third party and take a look at it.
Yeah,
so that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, and on April 3rd, when she said, I mean, it would seem to me that if they release the videos to TTSA or, to release to the public, that's a simple thing to say. Yeah, we did. It's no big deal. We released them. Why lie about that if they did? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. It's nothing to lie about. What's the big deal?
Right.
The cat's out of the bag at this point.
Yeah, there's kind of no reason to lie about it. She has a lot more to lose by lying about it and getting caught versus just being honest and saying, yeah, we released the videos. Okay, so you've got some white dots caught on infrared. I'm belittling it, of course, but my whole point is, what is there to lose if she admits it? And she's got everything to lose if she's lying.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense to me that she would lie. So now we're kind of back to questioning, okay, are these videos legitimate, or they might be legitimate, but not quote unquote declassified from the government? And I will say this at this point in our conversation, I'm very passionate about this because I've worked for over 2 decades of my life proving a UFO cover-up.
Right.
And I've never wanted to be more wrong than I am right now by doubting, or at least the magnitude of what ATIP was. I want to be wrong on that. But sadly, the reason, again, why I'm passionate is because as this unfolds and things are getting overblown by the media, when documents do come out, the media may not take it as seriously because they started publishing wrong information in December of 2017. So why are they going to take it seriously in 2019? Just to be made, looking dumb again. I know I'm jumping the gun there.
You're not.
But that's my concern.
On Friday night, I had Richard Dolan on over at Coast to Coast. I don't know if you heard our conversation over there, but he brought up a really interesting point, which is addressing what you are saying right now. The New York Times did that amazing piece, right, on December 16th. They haven't touched it since then. And what I'm wondering is it because of the mistakes with aerospace and maybe some of the vetting of some of the information that was there? Have they gone back? Or now, like you say, now they're scared, right? They don't want to go back and visit this because of some of these issues that have been brought up. Again, it's the murky waters, the rabbit hole of ufology, right? And they took their chances and ran with the story, and it was great, man. We got disclosure out there, right? It started to happen, but now they have. It's been 4 months, and they haven't gone back to do a follow-up, a retraction, or anything. They haven't touched the story. And Richard says, why? And I agree with him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. And UFOs, as we know, is a very popular topic. We see it in television, we see it in print, we see it online. And so for them to break that story in December, the attention that it got on a global scale was not only good for ufology, but in December of 2017, that was good for the New York Times.
Sure.
Because they were one of the first, arguably the first, I think what was it, Politico was the second. They didn't get as much credit. The New York Times, that's good because all of those worldwide global headlines that ran sourced, in essence, the New York Times as kind of the ones that broke the story. That's something that's really positive, especially in a dying industry of print media, and here you have this very popular story. So I know that I'm just repeating it here, but why is that? Why now are these news outlets not caring as much? When the third video got released just, 4 weeks ago, whatever it was, 5 weeks ago, when it got released, was there media attention? Yeah, of course. But was it to the same extent? Absolutely not. And so I think at this point, it's like, okay, well, we've seen these types of videos now, and things aren't really kind of panning out as big as what we are being led to believe. Because, again, if Mr. Elizondo said that there was all this evidence that came in, and this is what convinced him that there needs to be more money and a more serious approach and this and that, then where is that information? And that, I think, is, again, another part of my criticism that infrared videos are great. I'm fascinated by it. The last one got really interesting, and then the credits rolled. It was like right when they latched onto that object, that's not the end of the video, but then you see TTSA's logo, and then, hey, if you want to donate, donate here. And I have no problem with fundraising, but you have to justify the raising of the funds. And that's why, again, I'm passionate about it, because if there's reason and motive to exaggerate and embellish because maybe they didn't think any of us would ask questions, that's all the more reason to ask those questions.
That's right.
Because there's $2.5 million that's been put into this organization by people, some maybe even listening to your program. I personally didn't donate, but there's people that are. They're at $2.5 million. They deserve to know why there isn't as much as there should be. Why are these government agencies saying, nope, we have no records, when really there should be? And if you're taking people's money, you should at least address that. And you may come out and say, if Mr. Elizondo tomorrow gave me a call, I have a toll-free number, Mr. Elizondo, it won't cost you anything. Give me a call, and if he tells me, John, the government is just simply lying to you, I'd feel a lot better. I'd at least have some kind of an answer, and I would be talking to the other side. But sadly, nothing is getting addressed. And I think it's not fair. It's not fair to the investors, and it's not fair to people that are being led to believe something that may or may not be true.
Now,
at this point, the documents are the only thing that's telling us a story.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And this resignation letter, which has been talked about very publicly to the Secretary of Defense, Mattis, from Elizondo to Mattis, and he immediately, resigned and went to work for TTSA a few days later. Or I think that was the timing. I could be wrong on that, but that's not the point. My point at the beginning of the show was, shouldn't everything be out there when it comes to federal agencies? And something as simple as a resignation letter, I would think that would be easy to chase down.
Well, yeah, and I'll defend this no records response because this has been a hot topic debate actually for quite a few years. It actually ties back to courts being involved on the resignation letter of Donald Rumsfeld many moons ago. And so the question mark under the FOIA, and this is a fascinating debate, but boring to death, so I'll just quickly summarize it, and that is, are resignation letters subject to the FOIA? And the courts are leaning towards the fact that they would actually be exempt. So if that is true, I would have or should have got a different response. Now, for the record, for those listening, I received a no records response when asking the Department of Defense for Mr. Luis Elizondo's resignation letter. And if it was found but considered exempt, It should have been under what's called Exemption B6. And therefore, in my personal opinion, it would be exempted in its entirety under what's called B6, and that is simply privacy information. And so this was another kind of gray area. I'll forgive the no records response on this one simply because to the government, they may not consider it a official government record. I personally would fight that, but that's a different show. The debate, however, is that it would be exempt. So I believe that I should have gotten a different response other than no records, but be that as it may, that's what I got. What I also found interesting, though, in that same FOIA request is that even though they denied that a resignation letter was there, or they denied giving me one, I did in the same FOIA request ask for any response given to Mr. Elizondo regarding his resignation. Secretary of Defense James Mattis, who in interviews, it's been said that apparently Luis Elizondo and James Mattis were friends. So you would think that there would be some kind of response on an official level. That also received a no records response. In that FOIA request, I also requested any communication from Mr. Elizondo and any DOD official about the declassification or public release of the videos that were obtained by the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program. That as well received a no records response. Now, that's a big one, and the reason why I bring that up is because he would have to submit something, a form of communication. Now, he's admitted it's a DD Form 1910,
right?
But there might be communication. He may say, hey, look, these are not classified. Can we get them cleared for public release? Because a lot of information within the government is considered unclassified, but they can't just release it to the public. They call it for official use only, FOUO. And so you need to take all the for official use only and still get it approved for public release. So I requested any communication whatsoever in the form of emails, letters, memos, anything that received a no records response. So those facts that are coming up with no records responses just don't make any sense and just tax onto the list of red flags of what documents should be there but aren't.
Well, if he says that he submitted the release forms, right? Yeah. And the videos were released, well, then these are declassified, so the request is completely harmless and benign, and it should just be out there and ready to go for a FOIA. That's about it would come to you unredacted because it was released.
Yeah, I mean, within reason, they would black out the names of the personnel inside that authorized it.
Right.
But that's common, that's Exemption B6. But you're right, the majority of that would not be classified as the video is released. And if that is what Mr. Elizondo has as the quote-unquote chain of custody, if it's maybe just being, worded more colorfully to sound cool in the chain of custody versus it's a DD Form 1910, great. Come out and say that and show us the form. Because in my opinion, that form would not be classified at all. If it was, in any way whatsoever, Mr. Elizondo would not have it, regardless of him having a security clearance. And this is another point that I think the audience should definitely take into consideration. Whatever they have, whatever they're holding within TTSA or Mr. Elizondo in his private safe in his bedroom or whatever it is, cannot be classified at this time because they cannot have it. You can't retire from the government. Now, I won't argue that he has a security clearance. I'm sure he does. I won't argue that it's current. I'm sure it is. I won't argue that he has an oath and that's still in effect. I'm sure it is. But he cannot take classified information in any way home with him as a souvenir, right? We can all agree to that. So whatever he has as a chain of custody document, whatever it is, it would be releasable to the public. And yet, TTSA is holding on to it. Why? I have no idea.
If they have it.
I'll let you say that.
Okay.
If. I don't want to doubt it.
I don't want to doubt it
That's the thing. I'm on their side.
Me too.
I really, truly am. But we have to be realistic here. And there's just too many red flags to just let it go and let that ticker go to $50 million without getting answers.
Absolutely. Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, John Greenwald, the Black Vault. We're talking about his To the Stars Academy Report. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with John right after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Follow John Greenwald at BlackVaultCom. It's that simple on Twitter. Talking about this To the Stars Academy and Luis Elizondo and this stuff, John, once you put stuff out there in the public, from both the DOD and the Pentagon, but certainly Luis and To the Stars, it's part of the record here. And you really, especially with ufology, you can't make mistakes. We all believe in the TTSA mission, and I'm fully, you know what I'm really appreciative of is the checkbook. You know, a PR firm is expensive. Pushing this stuff out into the media is expensive. Getting these interviews and the awareness of ufology elevated in the UFO question is so commendable. It's never been done before like this, and for that I thank TTSA. But then we have all of this series of mistakes. Once, okay, twice, or whatever, but we're not trying to criticize TTSA. We're addressing these issues and asking for clarification. And that is exactly what you've been doing here.
What I've been trying to do. Yeah. And I think that, from both sides, and I'll say it again, I mean, they need to address some of these points just to explain it and to be open with the public. And I believe it was on, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was on your show that you interviewed Grant Cameron, and he kind of spoke to something to the effect, from what I understood, because I did not hear the specific interview, but saying that TTSA, in essence, divorced the UFO community and they were approaching it in a different way. And that was, correct me, is that was on your show?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and I think that that's completely the wrong approach. You know, I don't agree at all for that type of approach. I mean, I agree and thank them for getting publicity and kind of bringing the story to the light, because I didn't know about it. You know, I didn't even have a rumor about something like ATIP. I mean, I found documents to show that they were taking in UFO reports, but not to this extent, again, with what they were trying to convey. And so that I give them a lot of credit. But I think that we need to really embrace, and I'm speaking for them, or at least I wish that they would think this way. I think that they need to embrace the UFO community, not divorce it, because it's the UFO community, like you, like me, like everybody listening, that asks questions. And I don't know if they just expected to swoop in and say, give us $50 million and we're going to, take you to the stars figuratively and literally, and we'll all make tons of money along the way. And no one would ask a question. I mean, the whole basis of this was surrounding this quote unquote secret Pentagon UFO study that the media touted. And that's what really put TTSA on the map. I mean, Tom DeLonge obviously got a lot of publicity on his own, and he's a big name, and he is literally a rock star. But on top of that, it was Mr. Elizondo's story that really took this to the next level. And with that being said, I think they need to embrace the UFO community and address some of these things. If it's as easy as them saying, hey, they're lying to us all, then fine. At least we have an answer. But to just not even do interviews and, just kind of ignore a lot of this, I think that's going to be doing more harm than good at this point.
In one interview given by Mr. Elizondo, he states the following: ATIP receives the cases from various different channels. So where our office sat at the top of the office of the Secretary of Defense, we had multiple avenues of approach. So you had, in some cases, reporting would come up through Navy channels. In other cases, would come up through Air Force channels. Now, right there, that's on the public record. Now you have a direction to go with a document request, don't you? What did you do?
That's correct. Yeah. So I filed based on that interview, and I listened to it. I tried to listen to as much as what he was actually doing when it came to interviews. And this was somewhat new information that he had talked about on it, specifically where the cases were coming coming from into the ATIP offices, so to speak. And one of the sentences he said, for this capability, all roads, I guess, led to Rome in this particular case. All roads led to our office regarding the phenomena. So what he was stressing in this interview was that Air Force, Navy, they would all send reports to him, right? Mm-hmm. So what I did was I filed a FOIA request based solely on that statement, looking for any communication, submissions, videos, reports, letters, memos. I mean, I name them all in the FOIA request. And I requested it to the Department of Navy. I also did the Air Force. I don't have a response yet from them. But the Navy, being listed by Mr. Elizondo as a source, figured something would come up. And so I requested any type of communication, submission, form, anything like that from the Department of the Navy. into the ATIP office at OSD or the DIA, which I did stipulate that it could go to either agencies depending upon what time frame they were submitting it. So not to get technical, but according to the story anyway, it started at Defense Intelligence Agency and moved over to the Secretary of Defense, meaning the ATIP program. So I was covering all bases with that request. But I also asked for, in the same request, any instruction manuals, reporting procedures, methods, memos, directives, anything that would outline if you see a UFO or unidentified aerial phenomena or whatever acronym you want to use, how would you report that to ATIP? Because one thing with the military and the government, they have pretty much everything spelled out, whether it be in an instruction manual or a directive or a memo or something. But history shows us that that's how they take in reports. And I have proof of that, even specifically on UFO records, where they have specific ways on how to submit a report of whatever kind. And so I looked for, in this FOIA request, any and all of those types of instructions. And the Department of Navy finally got back to me mid-March is when I filed the request. They got back to me within a few weeks. They told me what offices they searched, which would be the ones that would hold records like this, which included the Naval Air Systems Command, the commander of the Naval Air Forces in the Pacific, and the Chief of Naval Operations Office of Information Warfare. Right, so those are the offices within the Navy that would, if records existed, they would be there. And all of them said absolutely nothing, that there were no records pertaining to any communications between them and ATIP, but on top of that, there were no directives, no reporting instructions, no manuals, no nothing. Now, why is that? Because Mr. Elizondo, and I'll go back to what you read, he says some cases reporting would come up through Navy channels. That right there tells you he didn't go to the Navy and sift through videos and try and find something on his own. According to his own words, they would come to him from the Navy. So how would they come through? If the Navy is saying, no, we don't have anything, but Mr. Elizondo is saying, yeah, they would come in through the Navy. Well, what's going on with this one now? That part didn't make sense either. And so you would think that there would be something related to what I had requested. And I was vague and I was broad for a reason. And yet the Navy says, nope, we got nothing. That red flag, call it the start of the nail in the coffin, that something wasn't right. The magnitude wasn't what we were being led to believe. Mr. Elizondo isn't being truthful. I mean, there's a list of what it could be. But regardless, Navy's got nothing. So this was another agency that is saying that there are no documents, when based on his own testimony, there should be.
Is there a possibility here? I'll play devil's advocate. Is there a possibility that we got Lewis's name wrong, or that he had another name that he was using inside of the DOD, and that's why there's absolutely zero anything on this guy?
Well, not really, just simply because the scope of my requests, and I do put the text on the big, I call it a case file, but the big page that I created, so anybody can verify what I requested. But I wasn't saying, give me everything from Mr. Luis Elizondo's email address, and that's where I left it. So if that's what I did and got a no records response, and his name was, Charles Smith, then sure, yeah, that you'd have a point. But I'm going after what we have confirmed, according to the government itself, as the real name, the real project name. And then on top of that, not even really mentioning Elizondo's names in what I'm requesting. Now, I do use his name and his testimony to support why the documents would be there. But in the scope of what I'm requesting, in the paragraphs that stipulate I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, I don't say with Mr. Elizondo's name on it. So that, again, was a strategic thing. You leave all that stuff off, because maybe the program is real, but Mr. Elizondo was not the head of it, even though that's what he said. I'm not saying that he's lying, but again, you get my drift, that if you're too specific, you get yourself in trouble. So to your question, no, I don't think that's possible, simply because I don't have his name in the majority of these requests.
Now, is there also, I'll play devil's advocate again, where that all of this is so top secret and compartmentalized that they are not going to release diddly squat to you? What about that part?
Yeah, is that a possibility? Yeah, maybe, but there's a couple things working against that theory. Number one, they're openly talking about it, and they meaning not only Mr. Elizondo, but also the government itself.
Right.
So therefore, the program itself is not all that top secret. But now you have the testimony, granted it wasn't under oath, of a former U.S. Senator, Harry Reid, saying that these documents are primarily unclassified and open, and you can ask for them. So you wouldn't have those things out there if it was just so top secret they wouldn't even acknowledge it. And I'll back that up even more. Let's just omit the testimony of Elizondo. Let's omit the testimony or the wording of Harry Reid. I have proof that when you deal with stuff that is really, top secret at the highest levels, specifically the National Security Agency's programs that came to light through the Edward Snowden revelations.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're talking about some seriously top secret stuff, just simply because they were breaking laws. They knew they weren't doing something right. This was at the highest level of being top secret. It was never acknowledged. It was kept off the books. I mean, there's very few people that would argue that that's very top secret. That would not be very top secret, excuse me. And so I have filed FOIA requests on those specific program names and topics. And if we kind of juxtapose here that versus ATIP,
mm-hmm.
the responses I got from the NSA were completely different. They were giving what are called GLOMAR responses. And what that means is that they will neither confirm nor deny that records exist on, let's say, PRISM being one of the programs that Snowden came out with.
Right.
So I'm using that as an example because that is how the government deals with some of the most top secret material that you can request. And instead of saying, nope, we have nothing and lie about it, they just say, no, you know what, we're not even going to tell you if it exists or not. In essence, it's that top secret that they just won't touch it. But with ATIP, that's not what happened. And the situation is exactly the same. You got somebody coming out. If you want to call him a whistleblower, call him a whistleblower. But he comes out. He talks about a secret program that's never been out before. And yet the FOIA responses are, not what it was with these top secret NSA programs. And I'm just using that one example. There's quite a few that are out there that show that if something is that classified, it will get a GLOMAR response more times than not. And they won't chance just lying about it because they'll get caught later. In essence, they'll just give the GLOMAR.
When we are talking about the difference between aviation and aerospace, I want to actually go back a little bit in time and talk about foreign technology and that moniker, mm-hmm. right? Because that could be and has been suggested that was off-world research, right? But also, and looking into the possibility of the retrieval of crash saucers and so forth. But it also could mean missile technology from Russia, right? And that type of foreign technology. When we are talking about ATIP and aviation, could this be a black program that is doing just that? That is looking into the aviation threats from foreign governments and not necessarily off-world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wrote extensively about that very point. We haven't talked about it yet, but the New York Times in their article said that Bigelow Aerospace housed these alloys that they were able to retrieve under this program. Now, of course, the media just glommed all over that, stating that it was potentially alien and extraterrestrial aircraft were recovered, or spacecraft, I should say, were recovered. And of course, depending upon the media outlet you were reading, they really embellished that part. But my theory on this ties into history. And history shows us a project by the name of Moondust. And Project Moondust was during the Cold War years, and it's a fascinating documented history that during the Cold War, when the Soviet Union was launching not only rockets but satellites into space, what comes up must come down. And Moondust was responsible for going out and retrieving these crashed failures or these objects that were coming in from space, crash landing in the middle of Kansas or in the ocean or wherever they were able to feasibly get, these objects, and grab them, bring them back, and essentially back engineer them or reverse engineer them, because we wanted to see how far the Soviet Union had gotten at this point. This was a very, very fascinating time in the space race, and Moondust, again, is a documented part of history. You can get documents. You could search theblackvault.com for documents on Moondust. I've got quite a few of them. And that's what that job was to see what the material was made of, how they were doing it, potentially what the capabilities were, and so on. Now, fast forward to today. We don't have the same space race, quote unquote, that we had with the Soviet Union back then, but we have a very different type of race, and that is to make sure that we race to safeguarding ourselves from these crazy lunatics that are running some of these countries that are out there, and we don't 100% know what the material they have is. And so I believe that the material that was written about that they say were alloys, which, by the way, it's interesting to point out that has since been walked back a little bit, that it wasn't alloys. They're calling them metamaterials, so it wasn't as originally printed. So again, yet another, misinformation out there that wasn't properly vetted or got embellished a little bit past what it really was. Now, again, I won't harp too much on it because it's a complicated, scientific thing to write about, alloys versus metamaterials, but regardless, that was another thing that was false in that original article. Now, be that as it may, now we're talking about metamaterials. It's my theory that, we're talking about Project Moondust 2.0. And Bigelow Aerospace, which we haven't really mentioned yet, which has been talked about as being the recipient of the majority of the $22 million, that this material, it would make sense to send it to somebody like Bigelow Aerospace, who's in the top 4 private corporations in the current commercialized space race. So it would make sense to take that material, whether it be crashed from present-day Russia or China or Iran or India or whomever, it crashes in the middle of wherever. We go out, grab it, send it to Bigelow Aerospace because they're contracted to figure it all out. And to me, that's Project Moondust 2.0 and makes perfect sense. It brings in every aspect of what was reported and makes it make sense. And the only thing we use to make it make sense is history, proven history with Moondust. That's exactly what that project was. Now, if they come out with alien material tomorrow and Mr. Elizondo says, "See, John, I told you we had it," okay, cool, I'll stand corrected. But until that happens, I think what we're dealing with is advanced foreign technology and the race to understand it. Because that race to understand it safeguards us, and it throws money to the private sector to understand a little bit more about space technology, how it's made, why it's made, and what it can do, and what we can achieve.
And I
think that makes a lot more sense.
And when you say foreign technology, are you referring to terrestrial foreign technology or technology from the stars?
No, I'm talking about technology here on Earth.
That's right.
And just like Moondust got entwined in the UFO/extraterrestrial, possibility,
did. Right?
Sure, it could be a possibility. I don't see it that way, and I wish that it was termed that way. If they came out and said, we got these metamaterials, these mysterious, unknown, whatever they are, they don't match up to anything. What we found was a lot of them are Russian or Chinese or whatever they are, but there are a few that we couldn't identify. In that context, man, I'd be all over it. That's awesome. But to give the impression that it's alien and not give any context whatsoever, to me, that's where that red flag comes in. I'm an advocate for truth and revealing what you got. If you've got the chain of custody document, put it out there. If you know that those metamaterials were primarily from other countries, but some of which you just couldn't figure it out. Cool. Give us that context. And that's what we can use then to really say, look, it's only 3% of what was recovered. But that 3% could potentially be alien. But we don't have any of that. All we have is the illusion that maybe it's alien. And then depending, again, on the media outlet, a lot of them say, yep, it's alien. They got alien chunks of spaceships there at Bigelow. And that's, not the reality of it. So that really is kind of one of my closing thoughts, I would say, in the skepticism that there's no context and there's no conversation with the UFO community. There's just these little teases. And when we think you're ready, we're going to spoon feed you another video. And I don't agree with that, just simply because I am that advocate for information, for the truth. If you got it, show it. And for those of you who are looking at that page, not to do a shameless plug, but theblackvault.com/TTSA will forward you to everything we're talking about. You'll notice a revision date at the top. My research morphs all the time. And so I add to that. I don't publish it and call it gospel. I morph it all the time. Whenever things come in, whenever new information comes to light, I make sure that I put it in there and share it with everybody else. And sadly, not everybody thinks that way. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's my personal opinion that if you've got something, show it. And the donations will follow if it's worthwhile.
Where is ATIP today? The timeline suggested publicly was that it ended in 2012. Yeah, that's another big question mark. According to Mr. Elizondo, it continues to this day. That's his side. According to the government, as we know in December, they said it canceled in 2012. So what I did was I actually went back and in addition to the military reports we know ATIP was receiving, we know that through testimony of Mr. Elizondo that there were pilots from the commercial sector seeing things as well. That has been talked about quite a few times. We know that over the years in the field of ufology. So what I did was I actually started researching the FAA manuals. And I knew just from previous research that Bigelow Aerospace had the National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS, and they were able to get themselves listed as kind of one of those reporting centers for commercial aviation pilots, and they got themselves in one of the commercial manuals from the FAA. However, what I did was I started searching through all of the manuals that the FAA published from the beginning of ATIP, the rumored beginning, through today. And I went through every single revision, and I actually have them all online if anybody's curious to look at them. And you can actually see from about 2002 is when NIDS was actually put into the FAA manual as being on the receiving end of a commercial UFO sighting. Around the time that ATIP was created, 2009, 2010, under the Freedom of Information Act, I received every communication from Bigelow Aerospace and the FAA. And around the time that ATIP started, the FAA manuals were revised, NIDS was taken out, and Bigelow Aerospace, or BASS, was put in. That's the arm of Bigelow Aerospace that is arguably part of ATIP, and so on. Going through all of the manuals all the way through 2017, Bigelow Aerospace and BASS was taken out after 2012. Nobody can fake that. And yet the government is saying it was canceled in 2012. Mr. Elizondo said it continued to this day. Yet in nearly the exact year that ATIP was allegedly canceled, BASS and Bigelow Aerospace disappear from the FAA manuals. Why is this important? Because it shows pretty much ATIP was canceled, or at the very least, Bigelow Aerospace was cut out. So I'll let the audience decide which one of those is true, but it does coincide with the fact that it was canceled in 2012. John, I want to thank you, man, for all that you do. This is looking at this, and certainly you have your son and your family and your job and your work and everything else. But the time and the effort that you put into the Black Vault and certainly this research, it's just commendable. And all I can say is thank you, and the community thanks you. And it's called the Black Vault, but it's also black and white. And I think that is the most important part about all of this. It's just an amazing amount of work that you do. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that, man. I had a blast. I really do appreciate you having me on.
And we'll do it again very soon. And obviously, this is ongoing, just like you've stated it here. And it will continue to develop, and I will continue to report the story and talk about your important work. Thank you so much, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thank you. You have a good day.
You too. John Greenwald. And everybody, the report is over he's got a special link for everybody, which is theblackvault.com/TTSA. It'll take you straight there. I've got it up in Twitter, and I'm going to take a quick break. I'll come back and have a little chat, and I'll open up the phone lines. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you, John Greenwald. I'll be right back.
And you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Monday night. I want to thank John Greenwald. Fascinating conversation. The Black Vault. Now, the this is when you go through, and you should, especially after listening to this show tonight, just go to theblackvault.com/TTSA, and everything is right there. Down at the bottom of the documents are heavy. Everything is here. But he was talking about Bigelow Aerospace and the reporting to the FAA. And there is a string of, I don't know how many documents are here, but it's got to be 20, 30, or 40. I haven't counted, but it's a long list. And you need to just actually go through and read that because the timeline is laid out there too as well. But again, this is about clarification, and this is trying to get to the bottom of these things. And it's tough. It's tough. The other part is, look, a lot of it is heartbreaking, and we need to, as a community, if we have questions, let's just try to figure it out, and we'll find out on our own if it's not given to us, and that's what we have to do. Okay, these are the days of disclosure. It's been out there in the media every single day. I talk about it every single day. I love it. I absolutely love that part, and the awareness that has been brought forward globally is just, these are amazing times. But there are some things here, and they are glaring, and we need to find out really what's going on. So with that, let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
What's up, Jimmy? It's Val from Sacramento. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am good. I was listening to the conversation with John Greenwald, and always amazing to hear him. But I'm going to throw it out there, dude. I invested in TTSA. I've been watching all of this. There's still a part of me that wants to play devil's advocate and say there's more to it than just simply FOIA request forms. I mean, if you go back and listen to all the Tom interviews, especially the 4-hour one, I think with George Norrie, I think it was, or was it you on
yeah.
Coast to Coast?
Okay.
Even in that one, he talks about a lot of stuff that he's meeting with people. He's doing meet and greets. He's got Tom has got a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of pokers and a lot of fires, from what it sounds like. You know, and it just seems like there's a lot more to it. Also, the investor paperwork just got finalized within like the last 2 weeks, and those packets are starting to roll out to people. I just got mine like the other day, and I'm wondering how much more. The one thing we have not seen are those chain of custody. The website even talks about chain of custody, and they still have not been posted. I have checked daily for them on TTSA just to see if they shown up without them saying anything about it.
Right.
And there's still nothing for any of the videos whatsoever. And it's one of those things where one of the things Tom brought up and mentioned that was really smart at the time anyways. Now it could have just been an excuse for all we know. But it's one of those things where he says that they wanted to go public with it because if the government went after them for anything, they can look up and say, we have worldwide investors we have to answer to. Therefore, if you do anything, you have to answer to them as well, which to my understanding, that does actually kind of work in some situations. I could be wrong, and I probably am, but I think there was he was talking about something about tangibility with that, or something where the government can't directly go after them because of that.
Yeah. I mean, that would, again, that makes a lot of sense. The other part, and it does, that makes a lot of sense. And you would think that there's a level of protection there, not only for the community, but for TTSA. And then you start to, you pull lancers out instead of going and chasing them. And that, that seems like a really good strategy. But the other part with that, again, especially when it comes to ufology, we get into these circular situations where we are just running in circles, chasing our own tails. And this, for the UFO community, we're acclimated to that. It just seems like we get stuck into these circular arguments. And I think all of it, and I appreciate the phone call, Bob. I suggested, and I'll say it again, somebody needs to just be a martyr here and fall on their oon sword. Bring it.
Well,
just bring it, man.
That, in some ways, like Luis Elizondo, he has stated a few times in kind of really odd, I would say odd verbiage, of that it may not have directly been a program as much as a project. And sometimes projects go with, even though they may have a name for the project internally, they may not have one for it formally. Meaning that there may not be a direct paper trail in the 22 million, much like SAP and special black access programs and whatnot. That stuff could all be filed in ways that maybe we do have to be, maybe it is one where we do have to be extremely specific in FOIA requests, as opposed to broadened and generalized.
Yeah, and the one thing that we have to respect John Greenwald for, and this is not a joke, nobody has done more with FOIA than John Greenwald. Okay,
he's the expert, and that's why I actually wanted to ask him about that.
Yeah,
and I did on Reddit. He just never responded.
Well, see, and that's if there is, just like he brought up, with Snowden's a really good example, in that there is, no matter what, there is a response to something, and there is a paper trail to something. Heavily redacted, top secret, but there is always a paper trail. There is always a response, no matter what. We cannot confirm or deny, right? And there is always that. And in this case, there is absolutely nothing, zero, zilch, nothing. But let's go back though, Bob. He did say one thing that I think is very, very important here. He had phone conversations with the Public Affairs Office at the Pentagon directly. It is written in official government email that the program was aviation, not aerospace. That's a critical thing here. This is not a mistake. This is official. This is an FOIA, clarification stuff. We're talking about straight from the Pentagon. That is a very important point to bring forward. The other thing is she could not find anything on Luis Elizondo and where he worked for. And that, again, that is directly from the Pentagon. This isn't a Freedom of Information Act request that is denied or no records found. Those records came from the Pentagon directly. So let's not, that's...
I'm going to admit, I've reached a point with this subject with these guys where when it comes to Luis Elizondo, specifically him, not the others, because he's the only one with a name that nobody really directly recognizes. I've kind of reached the point where his validity comes from the surrounding of the people around him, like Stephen Justice, Hal Puthoff.
That's right.
And all of that stuff. But at the same time, I'm with everybody else. I'm like, where is this guy in the military records? Where is this guy in DoD? Where is this guy in Pentagon? I don't sit down and like scour the names of everybody working in Washington, but I know that most of the time I can recognize when somebody throws a name out, and I can kind of pin, if I'm throwing darts on a board, I could probably pin it somewhere near Washington, D.C. or somewhere political. But it's just one of those things where if I recognize the name at all, and his name truly came out of nowhere for me. I don't recognize it with the group of people he's with. I don't think any of us did. We've all kind of just taken it for granted because he's been very vocal and very open about everything. Yet at the same time, we can't find records on any of it. But then he's got Stephen Justice and Al Puthoff and who else? Everyone else with them that we know for a fact they are what they say they are.
Right.
It's an odd community, is what it is.
It is, and we have the both that were fighting. They're fighting each other because one is confirmed, one is easy. The CV is there for these others, but when it comes to Lewis, we're at dead ends on every turn. Bob, thank you for the phone call, my friend. Great phone call.
Kyle.
Oh, Hal. I'm sorry. I thought you said Bob. All right.
Kyle.
Oh, Kyle. That's Kyle. Oh, it's Kyle. I'm sorry. You're breaking up tonight, by the way. When you listen to this later, you'll understand why I didn't hear it. Okay? But have a great night, my friend. Thank you.
Have a good one, Jimmy.
You too.
Bye.
Great phone call right there. Let's see. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
It's Wally in Philadelphia.
Wally in Philadelphia. How are you?
Again, how you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing good.
The America I grew up in is gone. I can't believe we're having this much trouble with this thing. I didn't get to listen early on in the program, but regarding the ATIPS thing and whether it's aviation or aerospace, oh, and by the way, the Wright brothers to Apollo thing, that was pretty funny. Can't we just call the New York Times and just get them to print a correction?
I know. I thought about that. Yeah, I thought about that.
Like if the LA Times, if a firefighter is injured in a fire and they say, Lieutenant James so-and-so was injured in a fire, and then the next day they find out his name was James Jones, Captain James Jones, they would print a correction. And so maybe call the New York Times and the writer of the article and say, what's the correct name of this? And they should ethically print a correction of, the true name of ATIPS is the following. And but I totally respect John Greenwald and what he does. I mean, I think his website's awesome and everything. Anyway, that's all. I just thought maybe it was a shortcut to try and get some answers, but
you're right. And Wally, thank you for the phone call, my friend.
All right.
Yeah.
Jimmy, one more thing.
Yeah.
I called last week. The cheesesteak place, was it Tony Luke's?
Oh man, I have got I have a fax somewhere. I can go back through my records from a friend that we all know, by the way, just a movie, an actor. But he had sent me a fax, and he goes, "Dude, now when you're staying downtown, you've got to go to this." And this is a guy from Philly who
right?
And this is where you need to go. And I just can't remember the name of it. And I went there too. It was a one-story walk-up cheesesteak place.
Tony Luke's is the only place I could think of. It's a walk-up and you sit down, but I'll keep thinking about it.
Yeah, I know.
We got bigger fish to fry. I guess we got bigger fish to fry these days, but thanks, Jimmy.
I'll figure it out, Wally. Thank you so much, my friend.
Take care.
You too. Another great phone call. I feel pretty good with the answer that we got out of the Pentagon, in that this is in writing. It's in an email and also confirmed with a phone conversation with John and Major Audricia Harris, where she says it's aviation. It's not aerospace. Well, okay, I'm feeling pretty good unless something changes and some paperwork finally surfaces or Elizondo produces something. But I feel pretty good about that. But the problem that I have with that is there's a big difference between aviation and aerospace. There's a big, 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 big difference. And that's a strange mistake. Do you know what program you were actually running in the name of it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. We're trying to figure it out, but I think that it is aviation, and I'm going to go with that. Now, live from the UK, Heidi Neal. Heidi, what are you doing, troublemaker?
Good morning. How are we today?
It's always a good day when you call in. How are you?
Bless you. I'm really good. I'm just calling to say that John is a legend. I've just recently joined his investigations team, and I'm not an investigator, let's be serious. I'm a promoter more than anything else. But he's an amazing guy, absolutely incredible. And just stuff that he wants to do, as he said, and we've said, at the end of the day, getting stuff out there, it doesn't matter where it's come from, who it's from. I mean, at the moment, I'm about to put a case that I don't think much is known about it. Although the lady was on with Linda Moulton Howe on Coast to Coast. But again, it hasn't been actually put on anywhere. So I think that's what I'm going to be doing now. I'm going to be sort of grabbing cases and putting them. You've been to the map. It's phenomenal. It's just like got pinpricks all over the world of sightings of all sorts. And at the end of the day, if you get everything like this in one place, it might jog someone's memory. So therefore, you're going to get some more evidence. And it's just phenomenal. And it's really exciting to be part of. It really. So I'm going to give another plug. Sorry. Do you mind?
Well, no, that's fine. But see, tomorrow night, we're going to have Anthony Sanchez on here doing just that, too, as well, which is, this isn't a U.S. phenomenon. I know that it's, especially here in the United States, it's easy to think that the world revolves around us and the UFO phenomenon is ours. It's not. It's worldwide. And the numbers that are worldwide, they will blow people's minds. And so tomorrow night, Anthony will be on, and he's doing the same thing that you're working on, same thing that John is working on, and others.
That's what we should be doing, and this is what OnStella's going to bring to us all as well.
That's exactly right. Anthony is part of OnStella, and so is John Greenwald, and so are you, and getting this data worldwide and compiled, it needs to be done, and it needs to be in one central resource for everybody to go and look at, for the very reason that you just suggested. Yeah. If anything else,
it could be the stigma to people that are worried about sharing their experience as well, because they'll go to the map or whatever, or the case files, and see, wow, I remember seeing that, and I didn't think much of it at the time.
Right.
And you're just going to end up with so much evidence. I think it's going to be, someone's going to have to come out sometime and say, okay, yeah, it's happening. It's it. As people have said, we are our own disclosure, and I think we've got to take the bull by the horn, and the time is now, basically. It's now.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow night. I know you'll be here.
Okay, darling. Bye.
Thank you. Heidi Neal from the UK. And my point, thank you for that, Heidi. Tomorrow night's going to be a great show with Anthony Sanchez. But my point, I brought this up the other night, and seriously, listen to me for a second. If there is alloys in Bigelow's warehouse in Las Vegas that came from off-planet, bring it. If you have a piece of a craft, bring it forward. If you're Elizondo, if you're anybody out there, it's part of the DOD or the CIA, and you're sitting on evidence, real, right? The real deal stuff. Could be a film, right? E.T., whatever. The real deal. Come forward, bring it, and be a martyr. Why? You would be the most important person in human history. You would make Edward Snowden look like a Boy Scout. It would be the most important thing ever. So bring it forward. Be a martyr. I said it last week on the show. If they send you to prison, I'll take care of your canteen for the rest of your life. But I'm being serious here. You would be the most important, talked about. you would have your own religion 1,000 years from now. You know, that's how important. I mean, and so why the dance today? You know, with all of this, alleged Pentagon coming forward, we have the FAA with their tapes. You know, in the last month, that's blowing my mind. But with all of this, I think you're in a safe zone now. I think it's okay. So if you're sitting on something, you smuggled something out of the office, you've got something at home, bring it forward right now. Be a martyr. That's the thing. I don't understand some of the dancing that still continues with Elizondo and others, where, the phenomenon is real and we're going to, we're going to, no. What is it that you know? What is it that you know? Not that you've analyzed this or you looked at that or you checked out a report here. What is it that you know? That's it. The cat is out of the bag. Just be a martyr. You'd be the most famous person in the history of everything, the most important person ever. Think about that. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Eric.
Hey, Eric.
I got kind of a fun story to tell you. This is kind of off topic, but it has to do with crashed UFOs.
Okay, 2 minutes.
And I'll make it quick. Did you hear about the crashed UFO? Well, I'll call it a UFO. In Needles, California in 2008.
Yes.
That was pretty... I ran into some people. My car broke down Saturday night, 58 miles in the middle of Mojave Desert, going from California to Arizona. Thank God I had AAA.
Mm-hmm.
And tow truck guy comes out, and he's a 31-year-old kid. He's lived in Needles his whole life. And so he picks me up, and we're driving down the highway, and I'm trying to make conversation with the guy. So I go, do you ever see strange lights in the sky? And he goes, yeah, I've seen a few lights. And then he started telling me some stories. But then he told me about the Needles crash. And he said that when it happened, he was in a restaurant, and the Men in Black were there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling me all sorts of stories. And then later on the next day, because I had to stay in a hotel there, the next day, the guy that fixed my car, he knew all about it too. Mm-hmm. And the whole town knew about it.
Yeah, the whole town knew. Wait a minute, Eric. Are you telling me that's the first time you heard about the Needles case?
It was the first time. I was shocked. I had no idea. Well, you're an expert.
Eric, how can you call yourself a Class A UFO researcher and fan and not know about the Needles case? Right. Well, you know what? At least you admit it on this show. I got to give you credit for that.
But here's the one thing, though, I want to bring up real quick. Is the crashes that because I'm learning the history in '53 in Kingman, Arizona. Those crashes that happened out there. There's apparently 3 of them that happened.
That's right.
So I'm going to do a tour out. I'm going to do a tour out there with that guy Harry Drew.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever had him on your show.
Yeah, he's been on the show a couple times.
Yeah, but I just think I know people try to figure out. Well, is it ours? Is it theirs? And then maybe in 2008, the Needles crash, maybe it was ours, or one of our advanced technology. Who knows? But when you hear the people in town talk about it and the way they describe it, it just points to an ET crash. But the ones in Kingman, I just have a hard time believing that we're crashing our own craft out there in the middle of the desert in 1953. That's where I have a hard time.
Yeah, the Kingman case is great. There's another case from Scottsdale, Arizona, 1958 or so, which is unbelievable. And that happened right on the north side of Scottsdale behind Camelback Mountain. And so that craft crashed there. Flatbeds roll into town. Very documented case. Take the craft out, and then they take the land that it was on and pull the dirt out. The dirt. And then replace the dirt and then put a parking lot over the top of it. But there was no reason to park cars. There was nothing there. Right? And so that's another case that is we can talk about Roswell and we can talk about these Aztec and talk about these cases, but there's other ones out there that are pretty significant. The 2008 Needles case, and I've got to run, but what was fascinating about that is everybody in town saw the black SUVs. Everybody in town saw the helicopters. Everybody in town knew what happened. And Needles is very small, and they got invaded by the men in black and the DOD and the military industrial complex. Everybody shows in. They retrieve the craft and split out of town. Like nobody's going to remember, nobody's going to talk about it, but it happened. So yeah, that's a fascinating case. I've talked to a few people out there that were there that day and saw it happen. So,
well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
One last quick comment.
No,
2011.
I got to roll. What's that?
Next time. In 2011, there was a crash in Williams, Arizona. I don't know if you heard about that, but there's a guy named Bob Short, 90-year-old guy here in Cottonwood. I'm going to interview him tomorrow that knows all about it. So maybe on a Fader night, I'll call you and tell you that story.
You got it. Thank you so much, Eric. Be safe.
Take care.
Got to thank John Greenwald. An absolute brilliant conversation tonight. TheBlackVault.com/TTSA. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Tomorrow night, right here, Anthony F. Sanchez. Until then, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.